Can you tell me what exactly is so evil about alcohol?
Well, it steals the soul.
How so?
Well, suppose a man gets his pay packet on a Friday.
Okay.
And he, instead of taking that pay packet home and giving it to his wife so that she can pay the rent or the mortgage, so that she can buy clothes and shoes and food for the children, what does he do? He goes to a tavern of a Friday afternoon and he spends his entire pay packet. And you know what else he sometimes does with that pay? He cavorts with wicked women who he finds in these taverns. So not only is he a drunkard, he's also a debaucher. And what of his poor family at home? Who do they have to care for them? They have Mother Nation. I will take them into one of my homes so that they will be fed and clothed and shod and taken care of, while the drunkards who fritter away their pay on a Friday night, instead of taking that money home to their loyal and deserving families. And that is one of the things that is so wrong about alcohol. And drugs, too. And drugs and cigarette smoke. Oh, let me tell you about the evils of cigarette smoke. Do you know, sir, that if a woman is expecting a baby, and her husband imbibes in cigarette smoking in the home, that smoke can be breathed into the woman's lungs and affect the unborn baby. Did you know that?
I did not.
Mother Nation is the first person to ever publish this, and it is scientific fact, sir. And I predict that someday everybody will know this.
Now,
they will all know this.
Can you tell us what was the turning point for you? Now, why did you take up this cause?
Oh.
Why this crusade of all crusades that you could have been a part of? Yeah.
I stood as a young Kansas wife, and I saw how the liquor sales are illegal in the state of Kansas. They are illegal, sir.
Yeah.
And yet, the pharmacists, the men who are the adjunct healers of our society, do you know what they were doing? They were dispensing medication above the table and whiskey below. And so these men who couldn't have taverns because they are illegal in my state, they were going into the pharmacy, I tell you. And on the pretense of getting some legal medication, they were being dispensed gin and even whiskey, sir.
Yeah.
So do you know what I did? I went into one of those establishments and I smashed.
Oh, no.
And I took that whiskey barrel and I rolled it out in Enterprise, Kansas. I did this. I rolled it out into the middle of the street. And I took a cigar out of a man's mouth and I grabbed it and I threw it on the whiskey barrel and I smashed, and that whiskey barrel set afire right there in the middle of the street in Enterprise, Kansas. And everyone gathered round. And let that be a lesson to you. If Mother Nation comes to your town, I will smash, and woe betide those whiskey barrels.
Well, you know, you are quite notorious in these parts, and I just want to find out now if your critics had their say, what would they say about you? This is not the exact kind of protest that's for everybody. So maybe some want more of a peaceful protest. Or
well,
what would you want to say to
those temperance ladies with their little parades and their white ribbons, I don't give them much truck. I really do not, because those women would not dirty their skirts to reach down to pick up a fallen sister. They only care about what is that word that you have now? The optics of it. They only care about how they look in their beautiful feathered hats and their gorgeous walking costumes, putting on their parades. But I am down in the streets. They say, Mother Nation, why do you preach in the taverns? Because that's where the drunkards are. Why should I go to a theater? Because that's where the debauchers are. I need to be down there preaching to the people, and this lady here is motioning me over there. I need to be over there. Was something happening here? Oh.
I think they're selling alcohol.
Oh. Oh, goodness gracious me. Shame on you. For shame, for shame. I am Mother Nation, and I am here to, ladies, I'm here to save you. You poor girls. You poor dear women in your short costumes. And these men are forcing you to wear these revealing clothing. If you were to come home with me after my testimonial, I would take you to one of Mother Nation's homes, and I would give you proper clothing to wear, and you would have 3 wholesome meals a day, and oh, there's alcohol right here. Right here, there's alcohol. Ooh. That is what I will do with the alcohol. I will smash, smash, smash. We must end this. We must end this debauchery. And ladies, it is not your fault. These men are to blame. The men are always the ones to blame. Now, there are some good men, like this fellow here who has his hatchet. There are some good men. I'm not saying they're all bad, but they must be turned away from wickedness. Turned away, I tell you. Get that out of my sight. And you ladies, you come and join me. She's afraid I'm gonna break another one. You ladies come here and join me, and I will give you some proper clothing so that you will be protected from the debauchery of these evil men.
Well, thank you.
God bless you. God bless you all.
Thank you.
The whiskey shops must go. Down with the drunkards' army. Down with the wine bibbers. Down with the beer guzzlers. The whiskey shops must go. Come with me, ladies and gentlemen. Rally for the cause.
It's week 3 here at Rockin' Wheels, and we're back at the Addison Historical Museum, and I'm with Carrie Nation. So, Miss Nation, moments ago, we just were at one of the food vendors, and you seemed a little bit riled up, a little bit fed up. Could you tell us what was going on over there?
Well, they were selling alcohol right out in public. Now, I believe that might be legal in the state of Illinois. It should not be, but I believe that it is legal. But behind their counter, they had young women and a not-so-young woman, and they were in a state of undress, sir. They were in a horrific state of undress, with their lower limbs completely exposed. Now, this has only one object, sir. It is to entice the men, to entice the men at this festival here, to entice those men to come into that booth, to buy alcohol, to buy food, and to ogle those women. Well, I won't stand for it. I'm going to rescue those girls and bring them home to one of my houses and protect them.
Now
That is what I'm going to do.
You have quite the following as well, and a lot of supporters. Now, how do you see the role of women in your social advocacy here and activism?
The role of women is very, very important because it is the women who are most affected by this tragedy of drunkenness in this country. They are the most affected because most women do not have an education, a proper education. They do not have the means to earn money on their own, and they are sometimes, if they are abandoned by their fathers, their brothers, their husbands, if they have them, if they are abandoned and left to their own devices, they can wind up like those poor young women in that booth over there, in a state of undress, having men ogle them, to have them come in and buy liquor and sometimes the women's very bodies themselves. And this is what we are trying to avoid. We want men to stop consuming alcohol, stop giving it to women and children. And it's not just the alcohol. It's also the tobacco and the drugs. Oh, some of those patent medicines. Do you know that some of those patent medicines contain cocaine and morphine?
Well, but Miss Nation, I mean, there's such a widespread availability of alcohol and drugs. I mean, is this a really feasible, sustainable solution to try to ban all this?
If I can save just one, if I can save just one, if one soul hears my words and says, that is me, I need to mend my ways, I need to turn away from evilness and drunkenness, if I can save just one, then my work is worth it. But I have saved hundreds with my Home Defender newspaper and my crusades. I was even invited to speak in Scotland.
Well, but at the same time, you have to admit, you've been in a lot of legal trouble. And I want to...
I've been proudly jailed 31 times so far, sir.
And do you think that it's still worth it after all of that?
Absolutely. I wouldn't change a thing. Every time that I get jailed, do you know what happens the very next day? My picture is on the front page of the newspaper. Every single time, because everybody wants to say Carrie Nation smashed here. They even have signs that say all nations welcome except Carrie. The tavern owners put these signs up. Publicity is always good, sir. There's no such thing as bad publicity.
Now, I just want to find out, you're very passionate about banning all alcohol, all drugs. What else do you want to champion? Is there any other cause that is not so maybe controversial that you might want to kind of take up for the good of the country?
Women's suffrage, certainly.
Yeah.
We need women's suffrage because were we to have women's suffrage, we would have prohibition. We would have prohibition, and I don't believe that prohibition goes far enough, but it's the first best step. I am for absolute abstinence, capital T total abstinence. But prohibition is a good first step. But we will not get it if we don't have the women voting, because it's too difficult to convince the good men to convince their friends and neighbors and family members, the men who are the wine bibbers and the beer guzzlers. It is too difficult to convince them. But with the women's vote, we are 51% of this country, sir. And with the women's vote, if the women could have suffrage, we could pass prohibition, and we could pass educational reforms for our children, and we could pass reforms for taking care of the environment, for taking care of the lands and the properties that are owned by the federal government. Women champion all of those rights, sir. And if we had women having the vote, that would make a huge difference in our country, sir. I'm glad you asked me that question. That's an excellent question.
Now, as far as your own personal sacrifices in the pursuit of your beliefs, you probably had to give up a lot to even get this moment in time.
Well, I certainly gave up my husband.
Oh, no. Was he a drunkard, too?
He was, yes. Now, my first husband died of the drink. He was a doctor.
And that was the turning point, possibly, for
and
you,
it
maybe.
was. He was a doctor, and he, in the Great War, in the war between the states, he, well, you know, they didn't have anything to help the soldiers who had to have their limbs amputated or had to undergo surgeries when they had gotten a wound, a bullet hole, or shrapnel. And so they gave them shots of whiskey to help them with the operations. And I can understand that. But the surgeons all believed what was good for the patient was also good for the surgeon.
Right.
And my husband became a drunkard. Okay. And I also blame the Masons. I blame the Masons. Now, you may think the Masons are a fine organization. George Washington, the father of his country, himself was a member, but they are nothing more than joints in most communities. And the men, on the pretense of going to a Masonic meeting, which should be a good thing, are there to play cards and gamble and drink alcohol. And that is what my husband did. And I lost him to the drink. And then I remarried years later to a man who was a widower, so that I could take care of his children. Because once again, a woman without a husband, a house owner to take care of her household is at the mercy of the community. And it's very difficult. And I had my mother-in-law and my daughter to care for. And so I remarried. But Mr. Nation did not appreciate my crusade. He did not. And on one of my trips, one of my speaking trips, I was only gone from home for 5 or 6 months. He filed for divorce from me on the grounds of desertion, sir. Oh. And then he was granted the divorce and promptly died. Let that be a lesson to you, sir.
Wow. Okay. Well, let's try to end on a positive note. If somebody from the future was standing before you and told you today that there would be a nationwide ban, a nationwide prohibition for nearly 13 years, and even a constitutional amendment, what would you say to that? How would that make you feel?
I would say that's a good start. But people are sneaky, and I'll bet you in that future time, I'm not a wagering woman, I'm a good Christian woman, but I will wager you this, that the people still drank. And they still would sneak around, and they would be making gin in their bathtubs, and they would be smuggling whiskey in from Canada, and smuggling whatever it is they drink in Mexico in from Mexico, and they would still have alcohol because they haven't gotten to the root cause. Just cutting off the access is not enough. You must convince people of the harm of it, and then you can actually affect a good cure.
Would you agree that you are a rebel with a cause?
I would agree that I am a rebel with a cause, absolutely.
And you wear the nickname, notoriously, Hatchet Granny, as like a badge of honor, right?
Well, I prefer to be called Mother Nation.
Okay.
But people send me hatchets all the time. I have hundreds of them.
Okay.
And I bring them.
Maybe put that down for a
And
minute.
I bring them with me. Oh, it's real, but I promise you, it's real.
Yeah.
I bring them with me, and I give them out because people send them to me all the time, and I give them out to my supporters. So when I have a rally, the supporters can have a hatchet of their own, and then I hope that they take that hatchet home with them as a gift from Mother Nation. And when they have an opportunity to smash, that they do that. That is what I hope they're doing.
Now, you're not going to stop fighting. You're going to keep on going no matter what, right?
As long as there is breath in my body, yes, I will, sir.
This is Carrie Nation. She's breaking down barriers one bottle at a time.
How tall are you, sir?
6'1".
6'1". You see me, ladies and gentlemen, standing next to this man. The newspapers say that I am 6 foot tall. Do I look 6 foot tall to you? No, sir, I do not. I am not 6 foot tall, but I am 6 foot of enraged over the conditions created for women and children due to drink. Some say that I hate men. That is not true. I love men. I loved my dear husband, whose heart, soul, and body was stolen from me, from my loving arms, by Demon Rum, I tell you. Demon Rum. He visited the Masonic Lodge. Yes, friends, the Masonic Lodge, ostensibly a gentleman's organization. George Washington himself was a member in his time, but oh, how the Masons have been corrupted. Nothing more than a joint today. A joint, I tell you, where my vulnerable husband, my lover, was seduced. Seduced, I tell you, it is true. Intoxicated and changed forever. Changed so that by the time our dear daughter was born, he could no longer care for wife and family, and he died, ladies and gentlemen. He died. Tragically, yet another victim of Demon Rum. But ladies, he was my victim. I was robbed of his love, his caresses, the family we would have made together, those he would have healed. He was a doctor, you see, a doctor. And all of that future was stolen by drink. And so I suffered, and my child suffered, and my mother-in-law suffered. We all suffered, but the suffering must end. It must end. I do not call for temperance. Temperance assumes a moderation. No, prohibition is all. I rallied. I joined. I was the local president of the Women's Christian Temperance Union in Barber County, Kansas, and still the joints persisted. The women and children go hungry, become homeless, are beaten or worse, while the men imbibe. Rummies, beer guzzlers, wine bibbers. None can care for a family if your mistress is drink. One morning there I stood in the golden dawn, a strange specter, a woman with an axe. And Kansas awoke. Timid little reformers, 2-cent preachers, hothouse politicians, and insignificant little souls tied to the Republican or Democratic chariot wheels all snivel in chorus. This is not the right way to go about it. This is anarchy, poor little brainlets that never pulse with a thought until some big whiskey daily paper pours its stupid rot into their minds. We must change. Alice Stone Blackwell, the woman suffragist leader, in an address at Chicago said, "Hereafter, the American woman must cease to be a hen, which could do no better than cackle and scratch. She must cease to be a nightingale that can only feed her young and warble. She must be the eagle mother, and her slogan must be, 'Woe betide the male chicken hawks who swoop down upon my offspring.'" I can read your minds. I can. You are thinking. I see you thinking. You are thinking, but moderation is fine, Mother Nation. It is right and good. Christ changed the water into wine. Yes, but he did not ferment it. The pure juice of the grape, not molded, rotted, or spoiled, but as God intended. That is what Christ provided to the wedding guests. Intoxicating wine is the poison of serpents, the cruel venom of asps, Deuteronomy 32:33. But Mother Nation, I hear you thinking, what of the physicians? What of the medicinal value of a stiff brandy when you're chilled or a glass of wine when you're startled? What of that? They are in cahoots, I tell you. Cahoots. The beer sellers will tell you that beer is bread. Beer is not bread, my dears. Beer is rot. Bread is the body and soul of our Savior. It is not corrupted by the bubbling, spoiling putrescence of alcohol. Physicians are corrupted too. My dear, dear husband was a physician. He was corrupted during the war by the other physicians and the officers who encouraged strong drink to assuage pain. Strong drink only brings on more pain, ladies and gentlemen. And oh, the corruption, the fooling of the American people by the drink pushers. So many of our so-called patent medicines are little more than demon rum and sassafras or mint or some other flavoring to cover up the stench of the base alcohol with which they are manufactured. And why? Why, you may ask, Mother Nature, would a medicinal concern produce liquor in the guise of medicine? To hook you, I tell you. To hook you so that you get the taste for alcohol, and once hooked you will not. You cannot ever escape. You might begin with Hood sarsaparilla or Lydia Pinkham's, and once accustomed to the taste and the feelings of that poison, you will seek out any way you can to obtain that sensation again and again and again. It will send you to the joints, to the taverns and saloons, to the brothels and the public houses and dance halls, where the poor, unfortunate females, like those poor young ladies that we saw across the way, where in their wretched states they are fed upon by liquor from within and vile drunken men from without. Do not be fooled. And alcohol is not even the worst of what they hide in those medicines, ladies and gentlemen. Countless poor babes, stricken with colic and other disorders, have been drugged and even killed by so-called soothing syrups, which are sometimes 1/3 morphine. They are. Once hooked on that evil drug, the poor babies scream and scream for relief, only to be given more and more syrup by their poor, unknowing mothers, all because of the ignorance of those mothers and the evil of the advertisers. This must end. You look concerned. I do not want to scare you. I want to save you. But not to save you as some of my religious brethren would. Let me tell you about some of the religious who enter the Lord's house of a Sunday morning with a stench of Saturday night about them. Some of you are at least honest about it, not hypocrites. I like the Lutherans for their lack of hypocrisy, I do. Lutherans drink openly, but praise God in quiet, almost in secret. In contrast to the Baptists, who praise God openly and drink in secret. Which is worse, I ask you? Which is worse? It is said that at some revival meetings, you know, these tent revivals way out in the country in some farmer's field, they invite all the young people to come and have a glorious time and hear the preaching. Well, I will tell you, Many times at those revival meetings, there are more souls begotten than saved. Yes, there are. I believe this to be true. I began, as many of you, on the path of righteousness for his name's sake. I joined and was even the president of the Women's Christian Temperance Union. We had meetings and rallies, but still the joints persisted. I have no use for women who will not soil their skirts to bend down to pick up a fallen sister. In Kansas, where I lived at the time, it was a prohibition state. No sale of alcohol was permitted, and yet men drank openly in joints, and so-called pharmacists sold patent medicines above the counter and whiskey beneath it. And no one did a thing. But I, Carrie Nation, did. I smashed. And I will continue to smash until all the joints are gone. You ladies, you don't know the joy, the pure joy, when you begin to smash, smash, smash. I smashed the joints and they jailed me. Time and time and time again. I asked them what the charge was, since I knew the joints were against the law. And they said, malicious damage to property. And I countered, more like damage to malicious property. I snatched a cigar from the mouth of one of my jailers and ground it into the dirt. Do you know what he did? He gave free cigarettes to all of the men in the jail with me and instructed them to blow the smoke in the direction of Mother Nation's cell so that I could not breathe. It ruined my voice. I speak wherever I can speak now, not just in churches and universities, but as in those very same taverns and saloons where I'm trying to save those that are being poisoned. I speak on the stage in theaters and vaudeville houses, because if one wants to reach the people, one must go where the people are. Good humor can do more to turn the tide than many other things we might try. Some even find smashing humorous, if you can believe it. Saloon owners write me every day begging, Mother Nation, when you're in my city, please stop by and smash my joint. I could use the publicity. They put up signs, all nations welcome except Carrie. They publish poems that I write in the newspaper. Sing a song of 6 joints with bottles full of rye, 24 beer kegs stacked up on the sly. When the kegs were opened, the beer began to sing, hurrah for Carrie Nation, her work beats everything. There are huge crowds wherever I go. I know that some of them are only there to see the spectacle. Some buy my souvenir hatchets and water bottles as a joke, but I do not care, for I can reach one soul, if I can reach just one, in a whole sea of human beings in an audience. If I can turn one person's life around, that will be worth it. I even went to Scotland. People were surprised. Why would you go to Scotland of all places? And I said, because Scotland is closer to hell than Kansas. And I told them, those crowds, I told them, drink is an evil, and they had to add extra shows. They had to ask me to stay longer because there were so many women and children in Scotland who wanted to hear what they could do in their communities to fight the evil. I stand for the innocent, and you should too. Spend your time, spend your money, spend your energy to lift up the fallen, to turn back the misled, and to smash, smash, smash. Oh, comrades in the conflict of the right against the wrong, to the battle of the ballot, with fighting and with song. And this shall be our slogan as the legions march along. The whiskey shops must go. Rally, rally, all ye free men and women. Rally, rally, all ye free men and women. Rally, rally, all ye free men. The whiskey shops must go.